This has been a powerful night, longer than expected, but powerful with great words. We're going to close it down as each one of you guys, when I ask you this question, to give us an answer in 60 to 90 seconds. As here in Atlanta, I've done everything from get out and be at a rally, the Coaches for Change movement, to talk about voting, to talk with my team, to talk with police officers with my team, everything that we could really do. So the question I have for you is, what's one thing we can realistically do to impact change right now?
Can do is, obviously you see how important sports is right now in athletics. Obviously we haven't been able to watch anything for a couple of months now, and you see how crazy people are going. I think with our voice and our athletes' voices, whether it's social media, whether it's coaches, whenever you're out in the public, you're talking to people about it. At coaching clinics, all these Zoom clinics that everybody's been on, not specifically like this one, but more X's and O's one, somehow try and tie this in to it, this piece into it. And I think just the more we talk about it, the more everybody starts talking about it, the better, because it's keeping people's minds fresh with what's going on.
I think for me, the biggest thing is just to widen our circles, especially for the white people. Just, understand what people are going through and talk to people. I think, I grew up in a white area, a very white area. And I think after I went to college at Northwestern, I thought it was so much more diverse than anywhere I'd been. So I thought we didn't have a problem. I thought that we were representing people. And then I talked to my black friends, and I realized that it was the least diverse place that they had ever been. And so I think for me, just understanding that our perspective as white people isn't complete is so important. And the more that we recognize that and just amplify black voices, will continue to lead the change.
It's got to be action. I don't think it can be really so much as us just doing a bunch of talking. I think it's got to be a lot of action. I think we're in the right steps in terms of protesting and those type of things. But a big thing, and I know a lot of coaches have talked about this tonight, get out and vote. We got to encourage others to vote. If we do those things, I think that will help with change.
I know for us specifically, one realistic thing that we can do to immediately affect change is we have to keep promoting black coaches. We have to keep shouting out names that need to be heard, so that the people that make the decisions hear them and get to the point where they hear them so much that they start making some of those decisions. And there's this perspective, I think, sometimes that if we get up there, and I got blasted for this week here, as I start tweeting about more black coaches and stuff. And, what's your problem with white coaches? I don't have a problem with white coaches. Ross Hodge is my guy, right? Ross Hodge is going to be a head coach soon, but I need to talk about our other friends and brothers and coaches that don't get lifted up in the way that so many white coaches do. White coaches wake up every day with a head start because they're white. And so, like they talked about in the video earlier, getting on that golf cart and catching up. We got to help catch up. So we're just going to keep talking. We're going to keep saying names, and we're going to keep shouting them from the rooftops until people start listening.
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing, build something that outlasts you. Build something that outlasts you. Like for me, I talk about my dad's legacy and the man's mantle down there, man. He built something that outlasts him, that every single player that he coached is impacting lives in a way that transforms. So right now you have an opportunity to put systems and policies in place through your university. Someone said it before, truth to power. If you can establish truth right now to those that actually make the decision at your university from a leadership perspective, build something that outlasts you, that you can pass down. We call it discipleship or mentorship. We disciple the young men that come under us. God has called us to do that. Coach Wilson discipled and mentored me. Now I'm a coach. I put it in the chat. He's the first Black coach in Rice history, any sport. Now I became the first Black coach in Trevecca history, any sport. And for him to pass that down, now I got to pass that to my players. And so for right now, all you coaches, you want to affect change. It should affect change by building something that lasts beyond you, passing it, discipling your players in a way that they reciprocate what you've already done. And now's the time that you can do that.
Is be intentional. We wake up every day and we're intentional about something. You know, especially as coaches, we have so many things we're intentional about, whether it's recruiting, X and O's, getting better at this, getting that at that. But be intentional on this right here. This is something that is not going to happen in a day, in a week, in a year. So we have to consistently be intentional about this. And I'm talking to everybody. I'm not talking to just white people. I'm talking to everybody, because Black people have certain ways that we see police officers. It's been ingrained in us for years. So we have to be intentional about how we interact, how we build relationships with people. But we have to be intentional about doing our part to eliminate biases, to lead with respect and love, and to it's got to be important to people. So being intentional in your day-to-day to not let this be something that is just talked about for a couple of weeks during the coronavirus, and then when things get back to normal, do we forget about this?
Again, Coach Huff, B, Adam, thank you so much, man. Unbelievable. I'm blown away. And all I kept thinking about was this. We got to come back again. I think we have to. I think some traction and some momentum was created tonight. And I don't know if that, and somebody else can help me with this. Does that mean we come back together and we invite 2 more people that can be instrumental, that can partner with us to continue to move this thing forward? Does that mean that we invite athletic directors, not so someone can get up here and try to interview for a job, but people need to hear this information. They need to hear this information. We got to continue to keep leaning in on this. And again, I just want to continue to encourage everyone to take care of yourselves. We're undertaking a very physical and an emotional and spiritual task right now. So when I talk about that racial fatigue, man, it really blew me away, because it's good people just like on this call who were committed to it that just burned out from it. It was carrying the burden too much. So make sure that we are continuing to check in on each other. But I think, Coach Huff, we got to do this again at some point, maybe a little bit earlier for the East Coast guys. But I think bring us back, invite somebody, and maybe you guys, just like we had a few special guests tonight, have some special guests of some real influences in college basketball.
Just to echo the other guys, man, I think Jason said it best with being intentional with our actions and our conversations. There's a lot of noise right now, as we all know. There's a lot of distractions that can actually take away from the positivity of the things, and it can get politicized, and you can see a lot of crazy stuff on Twitter. So I think staying the course, going with what you know is right in your heart, not being necessarily maybe brainwashed with this and that, and a lot of what can be positive can be turned into a negative very quickly when it gets hijacked for the wrong reasons. And a lot of us coaches we spend a lot of time on social media, man, and I'd encourage you to take a break from that stuff. If you haven't, you'd be surprised, because there's information pumped out for a reason, and in a lot of ways it's to divide what you have right here as a unified force that can do a lot of good if it gets turned the wrong way. So like I said, and keep learning, man. Keep having uncomfortable conversations. Don't just talk to people that agree with you. Talk to people that don't agree with you, and you don't agree with, and try to understand why. But I appreciate it, man. It was an unbelievable platform. And I like what Vince said, man. And I would, I think we do it again, man, and give the platform to other people and just grow and build it that way.
I think, for as far as where I go, I think it's action with our youth, giving them a platform to speak, giving them a safe place where they can speak. And I think this is great that all of us are here as adults and can speak, but I think our children and our kids also need that platform, and they need to talk to, us about what goes on in their lives, whether it be a white kid, a black kid, whatever. I have, other trainers with me that are black. And I think, even listening to this tonight, I think one of the things that I want to do as far as an action is create uncomfortable conversations with our youth, with our high school kids. I have kids from Frisco, I have kids from South Dallas. So, educationally, I think they all can learn from each other. And I think that's how, we create change is learning from each other, learning, how each other thinks, and being uncomfortable. That I'm going to keep saying it. Being uncomfortable to me is how this is going to change, and just keeping the forum open, but, give our youth, an avenue where they can speak.
I want to thank you guys. This has been awesome. This is the kind of thing that change is birthed from. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. There's a lot of wisdom from you young guys. And the thing that I enjoy is that this is an opportunity for me to learn and grow. And so I just appreciate every one of you, the contributions and the comments in the chats and all that stuff. I'm a little rusty with my technology, but I can listen, and that's a big part of it for me.
Coach Wilson, I gotta interrupt you real quick so you can be last. We somehow forgot our guy Cody Topper. We're gonna let Cody slip. We're gonna let Cody slip real quick.
Me, I'm going to be extremely brief. It's going to just continue to listen. Like, I'm going to listen. I'm going to make a point to listen. I'm going to make a point to, like Tyler said, have difficult conversations with our players and listen to them first and foremost. And then I think from there, it's going to be about learning how to use my platform, but also teaching them, the best ways to use their platform. We all have a platform. These players have a platform. I mean, heck, bad players now have 20,000 Instagram followers. So to me, there's a voice out there that they can use, and to use that to keep this conversation going. Because if the spotlight drifts, I fear that this whole subject will, kind of be frozen in time, and that's something that I personally, can't allow to happen. So,
guys, I'll make it real quick. I've heard a lot of guys use the term be intentional. I'll tell you what being intentional looks like to me. Every day when we're at practice and we have an opportunity to circle up at the end of the day, there's an opportunity to be intentional. Whether you're going to talk about a member of your team, their history, their family, their roots, or whether you're going to send a message, a quote from a famous poet, a president, or just a thought that came from somebody within your department or even the president of the institution. The other thing about what being intentional looks like to me is every day doing little things. The big things are going to be there. We're all going to have an opportunity to be a part of something big. It's the little things that connect the big things together. And so I think just doing little things every day, having a intentional conversation with a player, reaching out to somebody on the faculty, writing a letter to your congressman, taking your team to the children's hospital in the community, taking your team to the Boys and Girls Club, to the inner city, just doing something every day. And it can be as small as just that one conversation. But I think for me, that's what being intentional looks like. And so I'd encourage everybody just to do little things. You can't run a mile in one step. So just taking it one step at a time. And before we know it, we will all have accomplished a lot of great things. So again, I want to thank you guys. This has been awesome. I thank all the people that stayed on as long as they did. We had great numbers tonight, but we finished with some really significant numbers. And so I just appreciate everybody. This is an important thing, and just want to encourage everybody. And if you need anything, please feel free to reach out.
Yes, a couple guests that want to say something real quick. So I'll let Coach Marty Wilson from Cal go first. Johnny Bryant spoke about it earlier. He was his former coach, and as an assistant at Cal, was a former head coach at Pepperdine. A tremendous man. Will be a head coach again. He has a quick plug, and then Marlon Lowe from Houston. We'll let him go next. Has coached several NBA players. Has been super vocal about this topic, along with many others, and is a friend of mine. And then we'll close with Adam and Huff giving some closing words.
B, I appreciate you hitting me, guys. This is awesome. I'll be brief. Vince, you used the term lean in, and I leaned in quite a few times when you were talking, man. And the story of
how are you, Coach?
No, I'm good. The story of getting pulled over. We all have those stories. So I'm not going to tell mine, but we all have them. But one thing I just want to announce to you guys, I put it in the chat. Next week, next Friday, a week from tomorrow, we're going to be hosting a Zoom with probably 3 to 4 police officers, former teammates, former players of ours, to have that uncomfortable conversation. And I've had that because I've gotten pulled over and I wanted to know my rights and educate our players. And again, we had the same thing. We had him come speak to our team. So I had a conversation this morning with one of our former players who's a former white police officer, and he blew me away with the stuff that he shared. So I want to let you guys know. I'll get the stuff to B. My information is in the chat. It's going to be raw. It's going to be truthful. It's going to be educational and informative. And we want you guys to be a part of it because we want you to be able to educate your family, your friends, your loved ones, your players, how to get back home, as Vince said. And that's the number one thing. So I appreciate you guys.
I'll be brief, hopefully about a minute and a half at most. But what I'll say is this: charge it to my head, not to my heart. I got some young guys coming up, my sons. If I say something that people don't agree with, hopefully you might still recruit them because you ain't recruiting me, but just say that. But what comes to mind throughout, we can give all the credit to everybody. We can echo all of that. But from an outsider, I'm an outsider. I think of this that was not kind of mentioned: Tony Bland, Book Richardson, Lamont Evans, Chuck Person, Andre McGee, Merle Code. We haven't talked about these guys. How did they get caught up in this system? It's a system. What happened to them? How are other guys still coaching? Yet these guys, in order to keep their job, something happened. Jason said it. He was great. I heard him. I waited. Everybody got something out from everybody's conversation, but I really appreciated what Jason said. Burton said was, the system is there's no black president, there's no black ADs. So many of these coaches, in my opinion, a lot of people on here they're being PC. They don't know what you're going to say when you leave this place, to who you're going to say it to. And so some of these guys were being PC. Not everybody, but some were, because it's not like LaVelle Moulton when he had on ESPN a few weeks ago and spoke great, right? He has a black AD. He has a black president. He doesn't have to worry about losing his job. He knows that there's a support group behind him. And I think that when we don't talk about the system itself, about what's happening and how do we get to this place, and it fails to, we've done it's been some great conversations, but I think that in my opinion, it's really got to get a lot deeper, guys. Like, we said at the beginning, like, it's a right or wrong thing. It's not a black or white thing. Well, I get that. But let's say it's a right and wrong thing, and it is a black and white thing. Because you say, who owns the media? Who owns the TV and radio? Who runs college basketball? Who lost their jobs? Who's paid the most? So that tells you where a lot of people are at. And so you've got to work through that. And it's not, I don't want to be a college coach. I respect everybody that's doing their job, because many times you're away from your families. As I conclude here,
I just say sometimes it's like, are you willing to give, or if it's really about trying to do what's right, are you willing to give up something that you have for your family in order to give somebody else the opportunity? So these are a lot of questions, and I'll sit back. I enjoyed it, man. I appreciate y'all giving me an opportunity to just throw some things out there, but it's a lot more that has to be discussed, and I'm sure that y'all gonna go down that road. But I just didn't want those guys' names to not be talked about because they went through a lot, and they've actually spent some, Book and Merle, they spent some time in prison behind that. So just by doing their job for their coach, for their their head coach.
I just want everybody, if you're trying to get something with your teams, connect with Travis Williams. I think he's on here listed as HBCU All-Star Experience. He has a Coaches for Change movement that he started in Atlanta, but he's partnered with all the lawyers and African-American historians that are kind of handling some of the big-time, high-profile cases, the George Floyd, Rashad Brooks, Breonna Taylor's. He's willing to get those people to lend a voice and a platform to help educate, inform, and empower your student athletes. So get with him if that's something you're interested in and trying to transform and empower your team and enact change.
Thanks again to Brian for putting this all together. This was phenomenal. Appreciate all you guys being on here for 4 hours. Like I said at the beginning, it is really encouraging to see, 3 weeks later or whatever, we had a great turnout that first one, and we have a great turnout again tonight. And it was interesting to hear the conversations. Huff, maybe you agree or not, but like when we did this a few weeks ago, June 2nd or whatever, obviously there was a lot of anger in that conversation, rightfully so. And tonight it was a little less anger, a little more, not more determination. There's determination there too, but like people committed to action and sticking with it. And we're certainly committed to keeping this conversation going. Vince, I thought you got a great idea coming back, a month later, bringing 2 more people to the conversation, maybe an AD, maybe a player. But we're committed to do whatever we need to do. So again, thank you guys for being here. Brian, thanks for putting this together. And everybody stay safe out there. And anything we can do, don't hesitate to ask.